Before we begin, I need you to understand something. What you are about to hear is not a ghost story. There is no monster hiding under the bed, no creature crawling out of the dark. What I'm about to tell you is real. And the most terrifying part? He looked exactly like you'd expect a grandfather to look. His name was Albert Fish. And for over 40 years, he walked freely among us. Washington, D.C., 1870. A boy is born into a world that immediately abandons him. His father dies. His mother drops him at an orphanage and walks away. Inside those walls, young Albert Fish learns something that will define every single day of the rest of his life. Pain doesn't have to be something that happens to you. It can be something you choose. By adulthood, he had married, had 6 children, painted houses for a living. He attended church every Sunday. He smiled at your children on the street. And at night, he obeyed voices that told him God wanted blood. Albert Fish did not simply kill. Killing, to him, was almost an afterthought. What he wanted, what he engineered, was suffering. Ritualistic, prolonged, deliberate. He confessed to targeting children across 23 states over 4 decades. 4 decades. While raising his own family, while going to church, while neighbors waved at him from across the street. He told investigators he had had a child in every state. He wasn't confessing, he was reminiscing. May 1928, Manhattan. The Budd family placed a small classified ad. Their son Edward, 18 years old, looking for farm work. A man responded, called himself Frank Howard, said he was a farmer upstate. He arrived at their apartment with a box of fresh strawberries and a warm, unhurried smile. He was everything a parent trusts. Before leaving, he mentioned he was heading to his niece's birthday party. He looked at the Budd's 10-year-old daughter, Grace, and asked if she'd like to come along. Grace smiled up at her parents. Her parents looked at this kind, grandfatherly man standing in their doorway and said yes. She put on her Sunday dress. She took his hand, and Grace Budd walked out of her family's life forever. For 6 years, the Budd family heard nothing. 6 years of dead ends. 6 years of a case going cold. 6 years of Grace's mother leaving her bedroom door open at night, just in case. Then, in November of 1934, a letter arrived. No return address, addressed to Grace's mother by name. It was 4 paragraphs long. Albert Fish had written it himself, in careful, unhurried handwriting. The handwriting of a man with all the time in the world. A man who had been sitting with this letter for years, savoring the moment he would finally send it. In it, he described, in precise and loving detail, everything he had done to Grace Budd from the moment they left that apartment. The lead detective on the case, William King, a man who had spent 20 years working the worst crimes New York City had to offer, read that letter once, set it down on his desk, and walked out of the building. He stood on the street for several minutes before he could go back inside. A forensic psychiatrist reviewing the case materials described the letter as the single most disturbing document I have encountered in 3 decades of criminal psychology. Not the crime scene photographs, not the physical evidence, the letter. Because what made it so unbearable wasn't just what it described. It was the tone. There was no rage in it, no chaos, no signs of a mind unraveling. It was calm. It was warm. It read the way a man writes when he is sharing a cherished memory. Grace's mother, who could not read English well, had a neighbor translate it to her aloud. The neighbor stopped halfway through, said she couldn't continue. Eventually, a detective finished reading it to her. Grace's mother did not scream. She made no sound at all. She simply left her body for a moment, sat completely still, stared at something no one else in the room could see, and then she folded very slowly forward in her chair. Albert Fish had waited 6 years to send that letter. He had wanted her to know, not out of guilt, out of pride. For 40 years, Albert Fish made no traceable errors. Then, the envelope. Detective King, examining it under a lamp, noticed a faint hexagonal emblem pressed into the back flap, nearly invisible, almost worn away. The logo of the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. King traced the stationery to a rooming house in Manhattan. The landlord remembered a quiet old tenant who'd left some things behind. On December 13th, 1934, King knocked on Albert Fish's door. Fish opened it, smiled, reached into his coat for the razor blade he always kept there. King caught his wrist before it cleared the fabric. 40 years. Ended on a doorstep. Fish was 64 years old. He looked like someone's grandfather. 16 psychiatrists examined him. Most declared him insane. The prosecution argued something far more chilling, that Fish was completely aware of every choice he had ever made, that the voices, the rituals, the religious delusions were not a disease. They were an excuse he had refined over a lifetime. The jury took less than 3 hours. Guilty. When the verdict was read, Albert Fish smiled. Witnesses said he seemed relieved, as though he'd finally been given credit for the work. January 16th, 1936. Albert Fish walked to the electric chair at Sing Sing prison without being led. He sat down without being asked. He helped attach the electrodes himself. He showed no fear, no remorse, no hesitation. The switch was pulled, and with that last breath, the names of victims we will never recover died with him. Cases that will never be solved. Families that spent their entire lives waiting for a knock on the door that never came. Official confirmed victims. 3. Suspected actual count. Somewhere between 14 and 100. No one knows. No one will ever know. Here's what I want you to sit with tonight. Albert Fish was not a myth, not a movie, not something that lives in the dark. He stood in a family's doorway with a box of strawberries. He waited while a little girl put on her Sunday dress. He held out his hand. And the reason it worked, the reason it always worked, is because he understood something about human beings that we don't want to admit. We need to believe that evil looks like evil. We need the warning signs, the red flags, the feeling in our gut. Albert Fish gave us none of those things. He gave us warm eyes and a gentle voice and a story about a birthday party. And we handed him our children. Stay aware. Stay careful. Evil doesn't announce itself. It brings strawberries.